Hello everyone and welcome to the Best of the West, a place for all things LTA North and LEC. I'm your host Shadows, and let's just jump into it because we have so much to cover. Starting with LTA Finals, we're going to recap that before LEC, obviously, because we want to go in chronological order. We got two semifinal upsets. TL beat Cloud9. The spawn buff is super real. They seriously leveled up. Spawn really just sort of whipped them into shape. They just played better on the day. They were playing better on the day, playing better than they were previously. 100 Thieves upset FlyQuest. Game 1 was definitely a stomp by FlyQuest, so, it's not like FlyQuest was just choking or something. They played really well in Game 1, and then Game 2, 100 Thieves just snowballed their early game lead really well. Game 3 was different, obviously. It was the least one-sided. It was a hard-fought win. There was also a lot of fighting, especially in the mid-game. There was that Drake fight at 27 minutes, that FlyQuest hard one, and then there was a fight 100 Thieves wins at 29 minutes in topside, I believe. Because right after that fight, they took Otacon, but then right after that Otacon take, FlyQuest wins the fight. So there's like a lot of team fights. It was a very back and forth game, but they fought hard and well. I almost said hot fart. They fought hard and well. And yeah. And then TL 3-0'd 100 Thieves, which was disappointing. I mean, they stomped them in Game 1, which is not that surprising. I mean, if anything, it would be embarrassing if they didn't stomp them when you give APA Ziggs, Yana's on Israel, Umpty is on Maokai. He's a Maokai Sejuani guy. You have Impact on Cassante, which is objectively the best tank in the game. It would just be sad and embarrassing and concerning if they didn't stomp them with that comp. But thankfully, 100 Thieves did not embarrass themselves. Game 2 was pretty different because 100 Thieves had a really good early game. They had a really favorable lane swap. Sniper, for sure, handedly got the better end of the lane swap. They had a 2-0 fight for first grub, and at the same time, Sniper got a solo kill on Impact. Then they had a fight in the bottom lane at 30 minutes, which is kind of when. I mean, it was. But basically, I believe it was a 1-for-1 fight. They got another kill in between that and the solo kill and grub fight because they ended the early game with a 1.5k gold lead. They had 5 kills to Team Liquid's 1, but then they started team fighting in the bot lane, and that team fighting did not go very well. It went very, very poorly. They lost both fights. There were 2 team fights, and the second one was absolutely a throw. They could have played it much better, and they also ended up handing Team Liquid Atacon on a silver platter. They're just like, oh, here's a free Atacon. This is really disappointing. And then there was a Drake fight at 26 minutes where it was just a third nail in the coffin, and that was, 3 nails was enough to make sure that they can't get out of that wooden lid coffin. Because 100 Thieves were not strong enough to break it open. I mean, they did take the Drake from TL, but it's like you're trading Drake for 5 kills. You got aced, so it doesn't really matter. And yes, TL did get the next Drake. They did have Ocean Soul, but let's be real, they would have won that game even without Ocean Soul, so it really did not matter. They didn't need Ocean Soul to close the game out. Game 3 is also a comfortable draft for Team Liquid. You have Yan on Kaisa, you have APA on Aurelion Soul. But 100 Thieves, similar story for them. They were really ahead in the early game. I think it's not them playing a really well early game. I think it was more so Umpty having a bad early game, and they were able to find some good picks, but they did make a really good use of their gold lead because it was I think a 1.4k gold lead at 14 minutes, and then they engaged that fight in the bot side jungle, like right before it hit 15 minutes, and they basically doubled their gold lead with that. They were able to get a lot off of that fight, and so at 60 minutes they had a 3k gold lead. But yet again, like I said, it's a similar story. They have that awesome gold lead, but yet again they lose a fight in the bot lane. Yeah, they just... I think we need to give credit to Team Liquid staff because the spawn buff was showing again. It once again reared its head, its bald head. Spawn reared its bald head. The spawn buff reared its face. However you want to put it. Because they were playing the map super well mid-game. And yeah, this was also Jan's best game. I mean, he was playing really great in all 3 games, obviously. Like, he got Finals MVP. But he was playing especially well in Game 3. Like, he was playing these post-20-minute fights, like, basically pixel perfect. Every single team fight between the 20-minute and the 30-minute mark, he was basically pixel perfect. And he was ulting at the best time possible each time, so yeah. I'm not going to talk about viewership numbers because I'm so late to the party. So let's just move on to LEC. All right. LEC. I guess I want to quickly go over Fnatic versus Movistar Koi because I do want to cover each game of the weekend. I'm going to try and make this quick, though, because they won the series in a close 3-1 fashion. I mean, these games were not super clean by Fnatic, especially Game 1. Super scrappy, super close. Koi could have won that game if they played better. Of course, they overplayed their hand, pushed their luck by trying to end the game. They were just straight up overextending into the enemy base. And so, you know, that base fight at 24 minutes allowed them to take Baron, and then they were able to make a lot of use of it, and they won that team fight 3 minutes after the Baron. There's a midline fight at around 37 minutes and won them the game. Game 2 was a different story. It was still really scrappy and very unclean, but it didn't feel nearly as close. The least close game of the series was next game. It was not close at all. It was very clean and very disciplined game from Koi. It was the most controlled and the most dominant game win, and it came from the team that didn't win the series. I mean, I will be honest, Game 4 was, I guess, a little similar to Game 3. It was Fnatic's cleanest game of the series, but MKoi, while they got completely clapped, they played way better than Fnatic did in Game 3. Like, their base defense was way better than Fnatic's base defense in Game 3, and they were able to find way more picks. I don't think Fnatic really found any picks in Game 3. I don't think they got any kills even before that base defense. Meanwhile, MKoi was able to find a handful of good picks. But moving on, we get Fnatic versus KC. And honestly, we have to ask ourselves, was this a real finals? I mean, G2 lost... KC beat G2 3-0, but they only beat Fnatic 3-2. So Fnatic was able to get 2 games, while G2 wasn't. Anyway, I feel like it was more the real finals. They lost games 1 and 2, but KC was making mistakes in those games. KC made game 1 contestable because they were making a handful of huge mistakes. Fnatic was making a lot of mistakes in game 2. Both sides were. There was just a lot of mistakes all around. Fnatic was given several opportunities to just win the game and put the ball back in their court, but both teams were making so many mistakes. It ended up lasting 46 minutes, and the reason why is because both teams kept making mistakes. I'm not sure what really happened between games 2 and 3. I'm not sure if their coach gave them the greatest pep talk he's ever given in his life, and if they just mentally reconvened, but they were looking at those 2 games, and they knew they could have won those. So they knew they just had to play better and, play more controlled or just get good. Maybe that's what the coach said, get good, 5-head. Get good, I guess. But game 3, I do want to give kudos to the coaches, actually. I did just mention the coach. Serious kudos to them, because that composition was really good. They drafted just really well. They had a Xayah Rakan bot lane, of course a strong bot lane. They had Rakan plus Wukong, which I think is arguably one of the, not arguably, but is definitely one of the best jungle support combos. Arguably maybe the best, depending on the current meta. They had a strong scaling mid laner with Aurelion Sol, who's able to find consistent or supply consistent damage with his Dragon Breath if on top. But yeah, they had a strong commanding early game, and this time they didn't really drop the ball. Their team fighting was a lot better. I think that was the central theme of this whole series. The team who had better team fighting in the game was winning the team fights in the game. Was the person who won the game. Game 4 was different because they didn't have the strong commanding early game they had in game 3. The early game was actually really even, and it was very back and forth. But mid game they were winning team fights, and they were winning team fights on very slim margins. There were times where Oscar and Razork were really close to dying, and if they died, Casey could have won those fights. But speaking of Casey, we also have to talk about that they just underperformed in game 4. You had Yike on Zyra. AP junglers were never really his strength, and Braum is not enough of a engager. He more, provides peel and protection, and I think Targamas, with his current form, you want him on something that has a lot of engage. But then we get to game 5. I'm not a big fan of the draft if guy. People who always say, oh, draft shift, draft shift, draft shift. I think it is an overused argument, but this was absolutely draft diff. Yes, they could have played better. Yes, there were mistakes in how they played. But this was just draft diff. And I will die on this hill. What are you doing? Why are you picking MF with Lulu? I understand that with the picks KC had, they would want MF. But, drafting to deny just does you no favors. You first pick Lulu, and you're not going to pick Jinx or Aphelios or Kog'Maw. Just pick a hyper carry. Come on. Pick a hyper carry. Just pick Jinx, and then pick Zac for jungle or top, and you just win. You just would win the series. But I don't know. I'm not sure if Razork or Oscar plays Zac, though. I think that's part of the problem why they lost to themselves. I think that was part of the draft diff. They picked, bruisers. It was Camille top and Volibear jungle. I think that is an important factor to keep in mind. They may have lost to themselves because of the depth of their champ pool. I feel like maybe they just didn't have any tanks left to pull out. They didn't have any tanks in the tank. Pun intended. But yeah. I also think it's really funny that Red Side was just low-key objectively better in this series. It was like that way in the finals. It was 4-1 on Saturday and 2-1 on Sunday. So, won 6 out of 8 games of those weekend series. So, I think it's kind of funny because I feel like you would just assume Blue Side is better and fearless when you get to game 4 and 5 and you're very pinched. But no, guess not. Makes me kind of rethink fearless format. And then we get to finals. G2 finally falls. Carmine Corp are crowned as kings. You guys know me, I love my alliteration. So, yeah. It was just individually better play. Like, Vladdy had 3 great performances. Like, this is the first time I've ever seen Caps get outclassed by an EU mid laner. This might have been the first time the world has seen it. Like, maybe when he first came in 2017, he was getting clapped. But that was 2017. That was 8 years ago. So, it kind of feels like a new era. That's how good Vladdy played. Like I said on Twitter, don't give him his flowers. Just give him the whole fucking meadow. Because it was insane how well he was playing. He just was the best mid laner in EU this split. Targamas obviously outclassed his opponent. I mean, Labrov is just kind of bad. I'm not really sure how to put it. Yike was outsmiting Skumond at almost every contested objective. There was one dragon fight. I think it was an Elder Dragon where Skumond was able to smite steal, but like Casey got like 4 kills off of that. So it's like, do you really care? Like, ooh, finally I won a smite fight. You died, and 3 of your teammates died. Like, I think not only did the Casey play well as a team though, but it's not just that Casey deserved to win because of how they played individually and collectively and coordination wise, but also G2 just did not deserve to win. I think it was kind of crazy that they were second place. I think like we all saw how they played during the split. Like it's funny because, you know, after week 1, I think that was my first episode of this season of Best of the West. My first episode was titled "Is G2 Screwed?" And I feel like people were thinking G2 might be screwed, and then they kind of ramped up in weeks 2 and 3, and then playoffs started, and they were playing well. And I was starting to think, like, bro, this is an anime region. G2 just has plot armor at this point. They're in finals with how they were playing during regular season. Like, what? But thankfully, that plot armor was just yanked off at the last second. And they got absolutely stomped by Casey. So, with that, let's move on to first-hand expectations. Sorry for all the drink breaks. This is like my 4th take, so my throat kind of hurts at this point. My apologies, guys. But yeah, we only have 2 teams to cover, and this should be quick. So, let's start with Team Liquid. Team Liquid is low on the ladder. I have low expectations for them. LTA has shampoo problems. APA has shampoo problems. Impact has shampoo problems, sort of. Like, I feel like Jan and Core are the only 2 players who can handle it well. When you get to games 4 and 5, I'm just going to be having an issue. APA is going to be having an issue. Impact is going to be having... Like, you need these 2 to carry you. And I'm not sure if you can do that. Even if you get lucky in semifinals and you draw either CFO or KC, not so sure. I mean, I expect them to be better than KC's bot lane because Kalist is a rookie. So Jan is just going to be better than him because purely on mechanics, I think Jan is on a similar level. So Jan is facing a rookie. So in other terms, he's just better. And he's also playing with Core fucking JJ, who's really good. I'm not sure how they look against Doggo and Kaiwing. That's a little scary. Doggo is like a very legendary 80 carry in the scene. So we might genuinely finish 4th, which would be sad. We would be finishing in that 3-4 spot. But like I said, in the top side we have some serious champ pool problems. I think even with the spawn buff, Umpty is still a problem. Like, he needs tanks to perform well. He's the Maokai Sejuani guy. I feel like even if he pulls out, like, these noob tanks, like, I'm still scared. Like, I think he would be fine on a Mumu. When I say noob tanks, I'm talking about Mumu, Rammus, and Nunu. And I think Rammus and Nunu are a little too off meta. I don't feel like these are champs he can pull off. There are still other champions like Poppy, but like Impact and Core JJ are going to make way better use of Poppy. We saw how he looked against Isra Astral in Game 2, by the way. So I don't think I want to see him on Poppy ever again. There's Zach, but again, Umpty is kind of like a problem player. Like, dude ints. He might just E-into the whole team without any plan, without, Impact or Core JJ planning to follow up. He might just E-in on his own. Like, I'm not sure what else there is. I mean, I guess Gragas, but I think that'd be something for Impact, so we can go like Fimble Winter. Like, how is a jungler supposed to be able to build that? I don't think you can even get tier stacks from attacking jungle camps. So it's like Rivergen maybe. Like, there are more tanks available, but unless he secretly has like this awesome tank pocket pick, I feel like it's going to be easy to ban him out in those later games. And I don't want him on an AP champ because our mid laner also has issues. And what a perfect segue. We don't want Umpty on AP champions because AP has a champ pool problems of not playing enough AD champions. He's good on Trist. I do have to give him that. He has a really good Trist, but like, what else is there? Like, there's maybe Smolder, maybe Lucian. Like, those aren't strong enough in the meta, though. And, I mean, obviously the strongest AD champ is Yone, but he cannot play Yone. I swear to God, if Team Liquid pulls out Yone in one of their games, I will just exit the stream. I will rage quit the stream. Like, this dude cannot play Yone. He can't play melee champs in general, so Silas and Akali are out of the picture. He'll be easy to pinch out. In a 5-game series, they can just pick a Ziggs bot lane, and in the next game they can ban out good picks of his. I mean, if for some reason they pick mid lane and on 4 or 5, they can ban him out in that same game after picking a Ziggs bot lane. Impact also has champ pool problems, but it's very different for him. Like, he's an amazing player, and he knows how to play so many top laners, but we really don't want him on carries. Like, most top lane carries need to be very selfish, but he just doesn't really perform. He groups up too much, and he's a very selfless player. It just does not fit him. Like, yeah, he had GP well, but that's because he can ult for his team. Like, he wants to play for his team. He wants to group up. He wants to, be a team player and help his team out. So, yeah. That's why I have low expectations for Team Liquid. I also have low expectations for KC, but it's very different for Carmine Corp. I mean, you have 2 rookies. You have Vladdy and Kalist. They're rookies. On average, this team is pretty inexperienced. Targamas and Yike are obviously the 2 most experienced, and they have a good amount of international experience. So the pressure will be on them to play it out well and to lead their team, which they have been leading. But I think my expectation is 4th or 5th. I think even if they lose to CFO, as long as it goes to 3 games, it's not really a disappointment. The only way they disappoint us if, like, CFO just dumpster them too well. So, I think that is unfortunately a possibility because your best player or your most experienced player is playing versus Junjia, who's like really fucking good. So I don't know what Junjia's level is right now. Kai Wing is also way more experienced than Targa. 4 Worlds appearances, 2 MSI. But again, I don't know what his current level is. So we'll just have to wait and see how that series goes. But I think even at the end of the day, even if they do unfortunately finish last, as sad it will be for us EU fans, I think we need to keep in mind this is going to be a great experience for Kalista and Vladdy. It'll allow them to seriously level up, and I think that experience alone will allow them to maintain that top level or high level of play, being one of the best teams in the LEC, and allow them to make MSI, and then that is also going to seriously level them up, and then they're going to be able to play even better for Worlds. So I think the experience is there. But that's about it for what I expect from First Stand. I may do something after week 1, but most likely I won't. So, yeah, that is my expectations for Crime Corp and Team Liquid at First Stand, and I will see you guys after the tournament. Bye.